On Monday, a petition started making its rounds around the internet demanding publishers and distributors offer full refunds for Battlefield 2042. That petition was sitting at around 10,000 signatures when I signed the next day. Now it's Saturday, it's about 5:30 p.m. at the time of the recording of this video, and that same petition is now sitting at just over 175,000 signatures. Now, whether or not this petition actually produces any results, nobody really knows. These petitions never really get far off the ground anyways, and let's be honest here, this is EA. They are going to latch their greasy hands onto every single penny they've received, and the reality is that a fair share of us are probably not going to get our money back. If you are expecting your money back, I think that's a little bit foolish. The petition itself is also a little bit shady and clickbaity. The original creator of the petition has continued to remain anonymous and has claimed that the petition would be picked up by a class action lawsuit lawyer at 50,000 signatures, only to have the petition edited later with an update release saying that he would find lawyers to take the case if the petition reached that many signatures. But despite the legitimacy of the actual petition, 175,000 is a fairly substantial number, especially for a community in Battlefield that has a hard time agreeing on things. And even though it may not be an entirely accurate number, these things can be kind of skewed, it still holds weight as to how the game is favored publicly. I imagine that for most people it isn't about actually getting their money back, but it's yet another way to hammer home the point to EA and DICE as to just how disappointing and undesirable Battlefield 2042 is in its current state to the majority of players. Wherever you go, whether it's Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, YouTube comments, Twitch chats, the game is being relentlessly thrashed by fans and consumers. The building is on fire, and EA DICE are stuck inside without any fire extinguishers. DICE have said very little on what they actually plan to do to fix the game, apart from vague promises and the acknowledgement that they hear us and acknowledgement of a few things that players have been asking for since launch. Now we are at a point where everything that comes out of that development studio that is not a fix or a positive update is immediately dismissed by the community. The most recent example, this week's weekly mission reward, the tactical beanie for Angel, which is very obviously Sundance's beanie that was copy and pasted to Angel's character model. Now, is a beanie really all that important at the end of the day? Is it worth getting worked up over? No, not really, but DICE is under a microscope and players are really pissed off. Again, every move that isn't a step in a positive direction is going to be received negatively. I don't think it's all 2042's fault. I think in some way 2042 is the straw that broke the camel's back in the recent gaming trends of games being released in clearly unfinished states with inflated prices and drip-fed content, only to be patched up and completed a year after release, if not longer. Regardless, it's very evident to me that DICE is silently scrambling to save Battlefield 2042, and they are continuing to foolishly hope that eventually everything will blow over, and if they stay silent enough, the problem will eventually just go away while they drip feed recycled content. And with Season 1 getting delayed to June at the earliest, that is a long 4-month wait at the minimum for new content in which we barely know the contents of it, other than it includes a new specialist, new cosmetics, and a new map, which quite frankly, after what will be 8 months, that won't be enough. Even though 4 months isn't a long amount of time to wait in the grand scheme of things, Battlefield 2042 is so starved of content that these months seem like dog years, especially when the game has numerous balancing issues to correct as well, including sentry turret and transport vehicle spam. I understand that DICE is delaying content so that they can fix the game, but considering how anorexic the game is in terms of content, I'm not sure that delaying content was the correct move. One of the biggest mysteries of Battlefield 2042 is how accurate the reports are of how much of this game was finished, but assuming that at least some Season 1 content has been made and completed, I don't think it would be, dare I say it, too brutal of expectations to say that DICE could reasonably multitask on this one. With that all being said, DICE have made their bed and are going to restlessly sleep in it, but as the days go by, if EA DICE's best attempt at saving Battlefield 2042 is this, I can't help but think that this is the wrong way to go about it. The ignorance is bliss attitude that EA and DICE have adopted in how they are treating Battlefield 2042 is quite frankly one of the most concerning and irritating things about the reality of the game. Sure, they released a blog post detailing future updates, but there is still no timetable for those changes, nor has there been the 3 words that a lot of players have been wanting to hear in conjecture: we are sorry. The rest of it is more promises to do better and listen more carefully and interact more with the community, and while that may be enough for some people, I've been playing this franchise for a long time and I've heard those words typed out by a PR intern one too many times. You'll have to forgive me for being a little bit skeptical and cynical this time around. In my mind, there is only one true way that EA and DICE can save Battlefield 2042, and unfortunately it is something that I think they will never do. Battlefield 2042 needs to be killed before it is allowed to do any more damage to itself. I think it's quite clear that at the rate the game is hemorrhaging players and the amount of blowback on everything that DICE does or says, whether it's trivial or not, there isn't really much of a choice here. Battlefield 2042 is going to need to make one of the most improbable comebacks in the history of gaming. It's going to need a pretty substantial relaunch. Regardless of whether refunds are issued or not, Battlefield 2042 needs to be pulled from stores similar to the way that Cyberpunk's 2077 was removed from the PlayStation Store, and all content that can be put into the game should be put into the game. We've talked about this in other videos, but I think making Portal free to play and then porting over most of the Portal content to the main multiplayer would drastically improve the content drought. With a large, healthy dose of content in the game, you salvage what players you can, and then you go radio silent. If you can do this around April and plan for a relaunch in December, that gives DICE 7 months to fix the game and do whatever they need to do to place the game in a playable state. Increased performance, implemented legacy features, reworked and rebalanced classes or specialists, reworking and rebalancing vehicle distribution, better map design, intuitive UI, implemented settings from past titles that are inexplicably missing this time, and I could go on. We all have our own list of things to include, and I'm sure that through the past few months we've probably all heard a rant or two of all the missing features. Battlefield 2042 cannot wait until summer to release content, that much is for sure. There is no guarantee that the content is going to be fulfilling in the way we all want it to be either, and in the meantime, the content pack that they are releasing to Gold and Ultimate Edition owners doesn't sweeten the pot quite enough either. Battlefield 2042 needs to pull off a feat only accomplished in recent memory by Hello Games' No Man's Sky, or alternatively something done by a former competitor in the Farm 51's World War III, which is in the beta stages of testing now after completely redesigning the game from the ground up for the last year and a half after pulling the game from Steam. Now, I'm not suggesting something that radical. I don't think that 2042 needs to be completely remade from the ground up, but I think it does go to show you that if you show effort to actually fix the game instead of band-aiding it, people will listen and pay attention and give it another chance, and there are some brilliant developers at DICE. I would like to imagine that a AAA studio is more than capable of performing such a task, but in order for all of this to happen, EA needs to come to terms with the fact that they are going to take a financial hit in order for this to be successful. Battlefield 2042 is not a game that should be available for purchase in its current state. To paraphrase a reference from Battlefield 4, sometimes you need to cut off your own leg in order to ensure survival. Now, that's my opinion, and I'm sure that there are going to be some salty, deluded people out there that blame YouTubers, streamers, and content creators for the downfall of this game, or even suggesting such an idea. But outliers aside, the majority opinion and the variables at hand all point to the same solution in my opinion. Battlefield 2042 needs a new identity. It needs a soft relaunch, and as it stands right now, the game has no players and the game has no soul. The 100,000 players on Steam alone that the game had on launch is now refined to 3,000, and I'm not really one to skew stats to make a point here. I understand that those are just Steam numbers and that doesn't share the big picture, but even for just Steam numbers, those are quite shocking, and the logic and reasoning show that it's not much better where the grass is supposedly greener, even playing at peak hours on a weekday with crossplay on, and even sometimes on weekends weekends too, I am still finding myself playing in the same lobbies with the same people with a batch of AI-filled lobbies to boot. 175,000 signatures from a petition for players wanting refunds may be nothing more than the next talking point in the ongoing saga of inconveniences for DICE, but at the very least it represents something in which we don't have a lot of. A number. We don't have sales numbers. We don't have accurate player numbers apart from Steam. We don't have numbers of refunded purchases, but what we do have is a numerical representation of dissatisfaction on top of tens of thousands of negative reviews of the game. According to EA, Battlefield makes up less than 10% of the company's total earnings during this fiscal year and will make even less than that next year. Yet CEO Andrew Wilson claims that they are committed to fixing the game up to standards. To me, that seems like a conflict of interest from a business standpoint, but if EA DICE are really dedicated to fixing the game completely and not just band-aiding it and going for the minimum expectations, then EA needs to take a profit hit, pull the game from stores, and relaunch it when it is something worthy of being played, because in its current state, it is hard to find many reasons that it would be. That's the end of the video, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed your time here. If you enjoyed it, drop a like and leave a comment if you made it to the end of the video. It helps me out tremendously in the algorithm. If you enjoyed it just that much, you should consider subscribing. Thank you all for your support during these dark times of Battlefield content creation. I really appreciate your viewership. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Catalyst, and I will see you all another time.